Welcome to Health Facts with Normanie Ricks. I am your host, Normanie Ricks. I like to start off each episode with a little known health fact. Did you know that there are real careers in the military? Most people think it's just going into combat. I have the honor and pleasure of having Miss Nikki Glinton with us on the show today. Nikki served in the United States Army for 21 and a half years. She served as a senior public affairs advisor. She is now the vice president of communications for a local nonprofit in Atlanta. Her motto is to impact, empower, and serve. Welcome to the show, Mrs. Glanton.
Hi, thank you, Normanie, for having me on the podcast.
Nikki, I'm going to start off by just asking you an open-ended question. Can you tell us about your journey and how you arrived at this point in your life?
That's a heavy one. Well, what started off as me having my first child at the age of 17, I did not know what to do to provide for my child, but also get education at the same time. So because I came from a family of military folks, I ended up joining the military because in the military, you can make money and go to college at the same time, and it's covered. So that's how I ended up in the Army. I was doing well, rose up to the ranks, E8, Master Sergeant. So you're looking at top 2% on the enlisted track. That's top 2% in the entire U.S. Army. And to do that as a Black woman, that was pretty tough.
I'm sure you faced a lot of challenges.
Yes, I did.
Well, congratulations on retiring.
Thank you.
And making EA, which hardly nobody does.
Yeah. It was definitely a challenge, but it was rewarding. I learned a lot of lessons and met a lot of good people. I think that's what's best about joining the military is that you get to meet all kinds of people from different places and you get to travel and you have now that I'm a civilian, I know that the Department of Defense has the best benefits, hands down.
Yes. So how did you choose your career when you were in the military, or did your career choose you?
The military chose mine because I did not score as high on the ASVAB test. So I ended up coming in as a petroleum supply specialist. Pumping fuel for Uncle Sam is what they would say.
Yes.
So I did that for a while. And then as you rise through the ranks, you end up taking more admin roles. So now instead of being in the field, you are managing things. And then they discovered that, hey, you're good at admin stuff and project management. And then one day someone asked me, can you MC or read narrate a change of command ceremony? And I read that so well that they were like, hold on, you belong in protocol, right? Where you are planning events and speaking at different events in the military. And so I started doing that. And then one of my girlfriends, she ended up diagnosed with cancer. And it was really hard for us to accept that, but we ended up going to the hospital and she got her surgery. And after her surgery, I walked in and instead of her allowing me to ask her how she's doing, she was like, how are you doing? What can I do to help? I'm like, hold on, you're in this hospital bed. You just got rid of cancer. And she was like, well, but how can I help you? I said, you know what? I'm here working every single day. I know how to complete a mission, but I don't feel like I am walking in my purpose, in my God-given talent.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, so what is it that you like to do? And I said, well, I like talking to people, building relationships and just meeting all kinds of people, right? And she says, well, it sounds like you should be in public affairs. I said, public affairs? What is that? I never knew there was a public affairs field in the military. I mean, someone who gets paid to make social media posts or to write articles and take pictures and do videos. I didn't know that existed. I just thought it appeared out of nowhere. But she said, hold on, let me make a call. Now, this woman just had surgery, right? Mm-hmm. She made a call and in walks one of her friends who was a public affairs field grade officer, a Black woman. She walks in, introduces herself, and I'm talking to her, telling her about myself. I knew that I always had to have my elevator pitch on deck. So I had that going on, and she said, okay, well, send me your last 5 NCVRs, your PT card, and your weapons card. I had that already ready, and I sent it over to her. She set up an interview for me to interview with one of the top public affairs officers in North Carolina. So I sat down with them, and right there at the interview, they said, you know what? She belongs with us. I'm going to make a call right now. And when I tell you the Army allowed me to switch my field from logistics of public affairs within a couple of weeks, that's unheard of. And then at my rank, I was an E6 at that time. And so typically in the military, when you change your field, you're usually a junior person. They typically do not allow senior personnel to switch fields. And they did an exceptional policy for me. And from there, I began telling the story and protecting the brand.
And walking in your purpose.
Yep.
You said a key word there, elevator pitch.
Yeah.
So how did you know to have an elevator pitch on deck, so to say? In my world, as an entrepreneur, we do a lot of trainings, entrepreneurship trainings, and they're like, oh, you need to have an elevator pitch. And I had never even heard of that. So I definitely didn't have one on deck when I first started. So how did you get that in your back pocket?
Okay. Well, let's just say I knew the act before I knew the name, right? So my daddy is an extremely charming individual. So I always knew that I needed to say the right things to certain people or have my talking points to say to certain people to introduce myself. I've always been like that my entire life. I've learned that from my father. It wasn't until recently, I'm thinking a couple of years, they started saying the elevator pitch and putting a name with it. I just knew the act and didn't know the name.
Oh, I see. I see. So when it was time for you to transition out of the military, how did you overcome, I guess, the fear of what am I going to do now? What am I going to do next? Like, what's next for me? Like, how was that transition?
First, I'm going to say that wasn't my first time experiencing imposter syndrome. I tend to experience imposter syndrome during every transition phase of my life. So you're talking about from the first time I became a mom at 17, the first time I decided to enlist in the U.S. Army, to the time they promoted me to a senior leader where now I am responsible for bringing someone's husband home, someone's wife home, right? Making decisions that impact life, to the time that I retired and went into becoming a civilian. So lots of imposter syndrome there. How did I overcome that?
There's a term that I like to use. It's called grit.
Yeah. Yes, I've heard of grit before, but I think that what helped me get through this particular transition and overcoming imposter syndrome this time was because God had proven himself many times before.
Okay.
So I told you that story about all the different times that imposter syndrome attacked me in some kind of way, but I overcame it every single time. So I know that every time I'm transitioning to that next space, that I may feel some imposter syndrome because there's a learning curve. But I am confident in God.
Okay. So I have a question. So when you were leading others and people came to you or came to your office and said, like, I feel a certain way about this transition. I feel like I can't do it. I feel like I can't make it. Like, how do you coach people to overcome negative self-talk?
So that's funny you just asked that question. I just had a situation where I told you before, I am learning how to become an entrepreneur. And my partner is teaching me all these things. And I say, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. He says, stop saying I don't know how and say I haven't experienced it yet. And so I think that reframing how you look at things really matters. I think that also I'm a to-do list girl. I like putting things in my notebook with little boxes next to them. And I keep those things. And I also keep green books. I don't know, for those who aren't in the military, that's like a notebook.
Yep.
Right? And I'm old school pen and paper. So I will write things down. I got one right here, pen and paper, right? With boxes next to them. But I keep all these books. And it's interesting to me to go back after years and look at those green books and see all the things that I have accomplished. So I call that my evidence list.
That is so awesome. Last week, I was talking to a friend about the same exact thing. So when I was in boot camp in the Navy, I went to officer development school, and they gave us a little blue book that we had to keep with us all the time. And it was a book that was small enough to fit in our pocket. But to this day, I still carry one of those little blue books in my purse.
Yeah.
And it's a checklist of all the things. And also I go back and look and see what I've done. So my next question was going to be like, how do you teach people to overcome paralysis analysis? So I think that's a great tool. So if you write down a list and you're like, okay, like I'm not going to overthink this. I just have to check this off the box.
That's it.
So I think if you're in your head all the time, then you definitely end up with paralysis analysis. But when you put pen to paper, like you said, and you check the boxes, maybe that helps.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that was going to be one of my answers, like having that checklist. Also, because I'm a process-driven type of person, I love processes. I mean, I am from the military. I like to break things down into processes, break them down into smaller steps. And before you know it, you've arrived at accomplishing the big thing. And it's all about establishing your SMART goals too. So I believe in also not just focusing on the big goal. Like people might say, oh, I want to be a millionaire. Okay. Well, if I just keep on looking at that, like I want to be a millionaire, and I'm not breaking it down into smaller segments, like, okay, first thing I need to do is get a job. Or I need to invest, or I need to do these certain things. And so I just work my way up by breaking things down to its simplest form. And then the second thing I do is I just trust God. I just believe that a path has already been designed. Like your story is already written. You just gotta walk it. You just gotta walk it. And like I told you earlier, I trust and believe that he's going to come through every time.
And you believe you already have all the tools in your toolbox.
Absolutely. And if I don't, they're going to come.
I've been to a lot of leadership courses, and when you said SMART goals, that made me remember those. Do you remember what the acronym is? What does it stand
Oh my goodness, you put me on the spot. So specific, measurable, is it accuracy? Something in time.
Okay.
Yeah. So you got to put those specifics. I don't know.
No, that's helpful.
Yeah.
It's helpful.
Just look it up or use Chat GPT. SMART.
Yep. SMART goals. Okay. Another thing that you brought up is that you have an individual that is helping you right now and delve into entrepreneurship. So how important do you feel like it is for you to have a support network?
Oh man, it's extremely critical. Let me tell you about my circle of supporters. I have half that are, oh, Nikki, I hear you. They're soft. They're like reminding me of my worth. It's beautiful. And they sit down and allow me to be emotional. And then there's the other half. I remember I had talked so much SHIT while I was in the military saying, oh, they holding me back. I need to be unleashed. And I would talk so much crap about all the things that I would accomplish if I were out the military. And I remember calling my girlfriend and crying to her because when I first got in the military, I'm going to tell you a story. There was an organization that told me that they would give me a role. I interviewed for it. I mean, they told me that I would start right after Thanksgiving. I moved to Atlanta. They said it was going to be remote. I moved to Atlanta, purchased me an apartment thinking I was about to receive this amount of pay. And at last minute, they were like, I'm sorry, we've decided to shift in how we approach this. And we are no longer hiring leadership. We want to hire more junior roles. Now, if you're interested in a junior role, we could bring you on. And at that time, I had just retired after 21 and a half years. I had led people in combat and have told stories to tier 1 media outlets and have done all kinds of things, spoken with politicians. I'm like, okay, no, I could do it somewhere else. But then what I realized, it was hard. It was hard out here as a civilian, to convince companies to take a chance on someone who has never worked in an organization that has to bring in some kind of revenue. Like, everything I did in the military was about building relationships or telling stories about what we're doing, reporting to taxpayers and media and politicians about what we are doing with the money that they invest into the Department of the Army. So it was a little hard. I think that I told my girlfriend this. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm crying to her. She says to me, BITCH, don't cry now. You talked all that crap before. Go do what you said you were going to do.
Absolutely.
Right? So I have half of my circle who's soft, feeds into my emotions, and the other half is just like, do you think I hang with losers? Do you think I hang with punks or people who can't accomplish these things? Or you talked all this crap, go do it. Stop.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Needed a good kick in the pants.
I did.
Awesome. Okay. As far as you mentioned, when you were in the military, you faced some challenges as a Black woman, and then you became a civilian, and then you have a different set of challenges in the corporate world. As far as overcoming imposter syndrome, do you feel like there are some cultural barriers to just who you are as a person?
Ooh, absolutely. Yes. I think that there are some people who are able to walk in a room starting at the score of 100. Mm-hmm. And based off what they don't do or what they do wrong, they may get some points taken away from them. Mm-hmm. And then there are others like me who walk into a room starting at a score of 0. Mm-hmm. And everything that I do, if I do it excellent, I get a point. But I don't have that same, I guess, leeway or rope to make any mistakes. Right. Because I'm constantly having to prove myself to get an extra point. Yes,
that's a good way to describe it. How did you come into the role that you're in now as the Vice President of Communications?
First, the sheriff of Cobb County, which is the 4th most populous county in the state of Georgia, they voted for the first Black sheriff ever. Mm-hmm. And he happened to be a military veteran.
Awesome.
Right. And so his chief of staff at the time had served with me in Syria.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't have a comms department. Mm-hmm. So he asked me to come on board and set up the communications department. And I did that. And the city of Atlanta, a nonprofit in the city of Atlanta, caught wind of everything that I did and asked me to come over.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. Speaking of serving in Syria, you did several combat tours. Where all did you serve in different countries?
Yeah, so 5 combat tours, and I specialize in the Middle East. So I spent a lot of my time in Iraq, Kuwait, Syria.
Okay, great. A lot of people come to me and ask me, like, how did you live in other countries and how did you do that? So I think probably for me, it was having other people, the camaraderie, right? You're not over there by yourself. So you do have your team with you, even though it's hard to be in a foreign country. So I guess my question is like, how much do you feel like that helped you to overcome fear when you were on combat tours?
It's everything. The people around you. I didn't continue serving in the military because I 100% agreed with every mission or why we were doing things. It was always about the people you serve with.
Mhm.
And I believe that, like, every organization should know that people are always going to be the greatest asset of your team. And I just locked in for that. So if there were days where I didn't want to show up or I was too scared, I looked at my battle buddy to my left and my right, and I said, hey, they're here with me. And so I got to show up. And I think that's the great thing about serving in the military is that you learn how to be a team player through the suck.
Mm-hmm.
I think that as a civilian, I came out here as a civilian. I'm noticing that people change jobs every 2-3 years. They're unhappy. They're uncomfortable. They leave.
Mhm.
Well, discomfort was normal to me.
Yes.
I was trained to be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I was trained to push and motivate others through that discomfort as well. And so a lot of times where I did not even know how we were going to get through or if we would even survive, I put on a face. Like Beyonce says, she turns into Sasha Fierce when she goes on stage. Well, I put on my Sasha Fierce, and people sometimes looked at me like, oh, she's scared. I have no reason to be scared. A lot of times I was scared. A lot of times I was doubting myself. But as a leader, I learned that I didn't want to be that kind of leader who just acted like they weren't scared all the time, or they didn't make mistakes, or they weren't questioning things. So I always had conversations with my soldiers and told them exactly what it really was. Now, sometimes there's a time and a place for everything. I'm not going to say, hey, y'all, I'm really scared right now. We're about to die. No, not right before.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to say, hey, we got to get home.
Yes.
I got to get you home back to your mom, to your dad. You got to get this person back home. By any means necessary, we're going to make it happen. I think that's the beautiful thing about being a service member is that we are mission oriented.
Yes.
We focus on the mission and we don't allow distractions to get in. I can't say 100%. That's why I made it to the top 2%. Mm-hmm. Because you're able to block off all those distractions and focus at the task at hand. I would say that is a strength in the military, but it can also be a weakness in relationships in your personal life.
Wow, that's heavy.
Oh, yes. I remember one time my youngest, she was talking to me about something and she was crying her heart out. And I just couldn't cry. I felt like crying, but I couldn't cry. And I would ask questions or give the next step. And she'll say, oh, you don't care. And I'm like, I do care. I'm trying to solve the problem for you. Because I got right to the point of, I don't like you crying. I got to make it stop now. And this is what we got to do to make it stop. I didn't know how to sit in the space of not making anything happen. Like being okay with not making things happen. Letting things just sit still. And so that's something that I'm still learning to this day.
I definitely understand that. So when I transitioned out of the military, I did a course. I did it with the Marine Corps, and they kind of try to deprogram you so that you can have real feelings again. Yeah. So after you got out, did you do any like counseling or transitional programs?
Yes, absolutely. I started 2 years prior to my exit. Now I had a 5-year exit plan. So I'd always been, like I said, I've always been a very organized person with a plan. And I think that's what's so scary right now at this very moment, because I've always been such an organized person with a plan. And for the first time in my life, I'm kind of out here like, oh, what am I doing next? Where am I going? I don't know these things. And it's it's scary. And that's where imposter syndrome steps in. And you ask yourself, am I dreaming too big? Did I dream too big? But I learned that if your dreams don't scare you, then you're not dreaming big enough.
Absolutely.
Right? Another thing that I would do is I live in one of those apartment buildings, a high rise. I'd always dreamed about living in a high rise. In the military, I didn't get a chance to do that. I had to stay. I stayed in either on post housing or a home that was closest to the base because I had children and I need to be able to get to and from work or to and from the school or daycare quickly. So I didn't get a chance to experience living this high life in a condo or a high rise. Well, I go up to the top, to the rooftop, and I look across the city and I see all these high rises, these buildings, business buildings. If I were down on the ground, they would all look like barriers, things I couldn't get around.
Absolutely.
I'd ask myself, how could I get around these things? So that's why I would elevate myself, right? Elevate my position and go upstairs and I look and I see that even though that you had these big structures, that there was ways to get past them. You just had to change your perspective, your point of view.
Absolutely. My final question was going to be, what's next for Nikki Glanton? But if you, yes, you do. If you go to your website, www.nikkiglanton.com, and see your motto is to impact, empower, and serve, I would definitely love to have you as a public affairs person in my corner.
Yeah. So thank you so much for that compliment. I mean, you know what? I do know what I'm going to do next. And it doesn't have a title. It's about discovering those undiscovered gifts and talents that I have. And in order to discover the undiscovered, I got to have lots of conversations and lots of experiences out here. So that's my next step, is to just move, just be and enjoy the journey. And as things come to me, I learn and just trust that whatever comes to me, it's aligning me for my next step. And I'm not worried about that because he's shown me time and time again that I'm going to be okay.
Yes. We are going to leave our listeners with the quote, enjoy the journey.
Enjoy the journey.
It's been a pleasure having you on today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.